Now, there's a lot of things that can get on people's nerves that are kind of OCD about their lawn, but one of the things that could really set your lawn apart from a good way or a bad way is the edge. You look at this right here, and this sidewalk looks pretty good. The grass looks pretty good, but there's no crisp edge on that, and I know that's probably driving some of you crazy. In this video, I'm going to show you the exact technique that I use to get a nice crisp edge, but I'm also going to tell you 7 common mistakes I see when people edge. We're going to go through them one by one, and we're going to talk to you about how to correct it so that by the end of the video, hopefully, you're going to up your edging skills where you can have a nice crisp edge on your lawn. Let's get started right now. All right, one of the mistakes I think people make often, and let me just go ahead and clarify, I'm going to try to teach you how to edge with a string trimmer in this video. So number one mistake, using the string trimmer when you should have been using an edger. And I guess you could argue vice versa. If I see you out in the middle of the yard edging with a stick edger around a tree ring, I'm going to say you used the wrong tool and you should have had the string trimmer instead of the stick edger in that situation. All right, now here's our edge that we're trying to clean up right here. And you can see in this situation right here, look at this grass. So when was the last time that was edged? And there's where the edge of the sidewalk is. So we'll see if we can get it cleaned up and show you exactly how to do it. Now, the second mistake I see people do when they're edging is having a line that is too short. So when our line is like this, and I'm trying to edge, you're gonna be able to hear, hopefully, the sound of the trimmer, and it makes a higher pitched noise. It's because the line's too short. Now, a couple things can go wrong with that. One, it's just not great for edging. Two, it can continue to get shorter and shorter as you break line off and end up inside the head, and then you got to take the head apart and all the things. So that's not good. But we want to make sure we have the proper length line when we're edging. So let me demonstrate what it looks like when your line's too short. Now you can see when I did that, that's not a terrible edge down through there. Now I know some of you say I could do better with a stick edger, but with that line being too short, it's just not ideal. And again, I think it slows me down. I also risk the line getting trapped up inside the head. Now the opposite can be true also. Now if your line is too long, it's going to put a lot of strain on the engine. Also, I think when your line's too long, it's going to give you a little bit of a wobble and not quite as a crisp of an edge. So I think that's another mistake you can make. And with experience, hopefully you can find that perfect length of line. Now for me, this is slightly too long. Fortunately, with these speed feed heads, I could just wind it in one click, and that's about the ideal length that I like to keep my line when I'm edging. Let me give a brief demonstration of what it's like when you're trying to edge with the lines too long. I won't spend a whole lot of time on this one, but I think it's a mistake for people not to use a speed feed head or something similar. There's other manufacturers out there making a similar head. What's great about these, and I can put a link in the description, but you don't have to take the head apart like I mentioned. If it gets all wrapped up in there, then you would. But when you run out of line, you simply cut off about 15 feet of line for this particular head, run it through one side, out the other side, and then turn it clockwise to wind it back up to the right length. So it's great. It feeds great. It's much simpler than taking the head apart, wrapping the line. So the speed feed head to me is a worthy investment. Now, the next thing that I think a mistake personally is not holding the trimmer the correct way. I'm going to give you a little demonstration of how I hold the trimmer. This is not for everyone. I'll actually show you a couple different ways. So for me, I like to, if I'm holding it, if I'm just, out here trimming and weed eating, wherever, that's what we call it in the South sometimes. But if I'm holding the trimmer like this, it's a simple move. I got my trimmer like this. Now I'm going to start edging. I just flip it. Okay, so I flip it. This hand was on top of the handle. It now goes to the side of the handle, or even maybe even to the bottom. And now I flip the handle over. And instead of driving it with my finger, I'm now pressing the trigger with my thumb, okay? So you see here, I'm holding it like this. Of course, it's going to be further down, but I'm trying to get into the camera. Holding it like this, I give it one flip. Now I'm using my thumb, okay? Now I can flip it back. So I can go really quick from trimming right here, flipping, now I'm edging. Now flipping, I'm trimming, now I'm edging. When I do that, and this can be another mistake here, I want to make sure that the trimmer head is as vertical or perpendicular to the ground as possible. So I may have to hold it up a little higher depending on how tall or short you are. Okay, what I don't want to do is have it at a crazy angle where I'm not getting a nice firm edge. Now, sometimes, it may not be perfect, but the idea is to get a nice perpendicular edge. The other acceptable way, and there may be other ways, okay, but I see some people, they're holding the trimmer like this, and when they go to edge, they flip it up like this, and now they're using their finger. I just call this the ear hole method because I got this thing basically in my ear hole, and that's what I don't like about it. So my preference is to have it trimming here and flip it, and now I'm edging. But if you want to go the ear hole method and hold it, and now you're using your trigger, again, I'd say the advantage of this is it does make it more natural to get a nice vertical edge on it, where the way I'm teaching you, you do got to kind of elevate it a little bit to get a more vertical edge. Let me run through the rest of these criticisms, and then we'll give you a good solid demonstration here. The other mistake I see is people are digging too deep. I just really want the very tip of the line doing the cutting, okay? I'm not trying to dig a trench, okay? So when you're doing that, if you're digging a trench, your line can start wobbling on you. So I'm just using the tip to barely connect with the dirt there. I'm cutting the grass, okay? I'm not digging a hole. Another mistake, and this can be a huge one, is not understanding which way the trimmer is throwing the debris. Okay, so you gotta understand, my trimmer head's gonna spin like this when it's going. So if I'm standing right here and I'm edging, which way's the debris going? It's going that way. It's not going that way. If the Mercedes is sitting over here, not my Mercedes, I don't have one, but if it is, or a window, or whatever, then I need to make sure that I switch over here and get on the other side or do something different. And that's why you'll see something that's actually not on my list that some people are going to disagree with. And I'd love to hear from you in the comments. But some people say, oh, one huge mistake I see people make is they're walking backwards. They should have been walking forward. Well, I'll say a couple things. One, I've seen a lot of people that can walk backwards better than a lot of people that can walk forward. So if you're coordinated enough, you could probably walk forward or backwards. I think you need to learn to do both, because in a situation where, again, the fancy car, the window, the whatever is over here, I might want to switch over and go a different direction, walk backwards, walk forwards, to make sure I'm throwing the debris in the right direction. Now, I know you could rearrange some things and move in a different direction and still accomplish the same goal, but to me, it's just worth being versatile to be able to go forward, backwards, stand on the sidewalk, stand on the grass, whatever is needed in that particular situation. As a side note, I do find it easier to stand on the concrete side versus the grass side, just for what it's worth. All right, enough talking about that. Let me give you a halfway decent demonstration here. Again, I'm going to show you the way I do it. It may not be for everyone, but I think it is a good method. And try not to get discouraged. It may take practice, and if it looks really rough, maybe do it with an edge your first time, and as you do it more often, it actually becomes easier to do. If the ground is super compacted, there's been a car driving on the edge of the sidewalk over and over, the driveway, then it's super compacted, it's going to be a little bit tougher to get established. Once you get an established edge, it's much easier to maintain it than to establish it for the first time. Now look, that's my edge I just did. That's not too terrible. Let's see if we can see where the edge stops. And that's pretty clean, I would say, for being out of practice. And then you get over here. This is what we were started with. So it looks pretty terrible on up through there. Compare that with down through there. I'd say that's a pretty decent edge. Last thing I want to mention, a huge mistake, obviously, is not wearing your safety glasses, ear protection. I have this visual in my mind. It's just probably 15 to 20 years ago. A medical doctor that I saw out there with a trimmer, and he had no glasses on, and his protection was squinting. He's out there trimming, and he's squinting. Okay, squinting is not a good use of protection from the debris. Okay, so wear your PPE, okay, glasses, earplugs or earphones, whatever, to protect your eyes, your ears. Some people might want to wear a face shield, whatever you feel comfortable with to protect you, then I would recommend that. All right, again, I was showing you how to edge a drywall, but to me, this is a skill that's great for a situation like this, a flower bed with no border on it. I don't want to bring a stick edger out here. I want to be able to trim. I'm trimming along the edge, but then I'm going to flip it upside down and make an edge. So let me try to demonstrate that. And again, if I want to throw it away from the camera, then I need to make sure that it's going this way and the debris will be going back that way. So let's demonstrate. All right, let's see how well I can do here. Again, I want to use just the tip of the line as I'm edging, and you can see it's cleaning up that edge. It's not perfect, but as you do this more and more, one, you'll get a steadier hand, and two, the edge will become more defined where it'll be easier moving forward. All right, let me edge this sidewalk. Again, when you're using a trimmer, it makes it easier because I got one tool. I can edge the flower bed, I get to this, I can trim, I can flip it over. I don't have to set it down, walk over, get the edger, or do all the edging. So yeah, to me, there's just some advantages to learning how to use the trimmer. Now you can see in this situation, I'm standing on the concrete side. I find that to be a little bit easier to see standing on that side versus the grass side. And sometimes in this situation when it's overgrown, I want to use the tip of the line, but I want to maybe go over it twice if it doesn't quite cut it. And as that edge gets more and more established, it becomes easier and easier. This was a fairly overgrown edge when I started this process. So to me, again, even with that, without an edger, we got a pretty good edge, and this is not something that's been done very often at all. So if I keep that maintained, we're going to have a nice crisp edge. It's going to be easier and easier to do every single time. I hope the tips I've given you in this video are helpful for you to knowing how to edge with a trimmer, knowing the common mistakes that you're going to see a lot of people do. And I did walk backwards in a lot of these situations because I was trying to throw the debris away from the camera. Depending on the situation, I may walk forward, backwards. I want to be versatile, be able to do it in any way that the challenge presents itself. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to the channel if you hadn't done so. I've got a lot of resources over at lawncarelife.com if you're new to the channel as well. I've got a 1-year mentorship program. I've got a course for homeowners basically on how to have a beautiful Bermuda zoysia lawn. A lot of things over at lawncarelife.com. If you don't want to do that, then you can check out and watch these 2 videos next.